Mark Cagney. How are you?
Casey.
Good to see you.
Indeed, Casey in the Sunshine Grandad. Looking more like a grandad now since I've gone with the pandemic beard.
Yeah, I like kind of Liam Cunningham look.
Thank you for that. My two daughters, who are gorgeous and lovely but utterly merciless, said, "Yeah, it's a bit, Sir Davos." And I'll take that all day long. Although when I walked in here, both Mark Simpson and the boss Patricia said, "Oh, you're Santa Claus. That'd be a handy extra gig at Christmas."
Yeah, now that you say it's Santa. Anyway. January 8th, 2021, about 8 weeks ago. What happened, you?
Yes. Well, it was another day in lockdown. And my wife was at work, so I had to go and get some stuff for the dinner. And I live in the north side of Dublin, about a half a k from Sutton Cross. Super value now. So very handy jaunt up the road. So I went up. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and on my way up, literally 100 yards outside my estate, there's a big junction which takes a left to go to Baldoyle and on out to Portmarnock. I stopped there and started to get a really strange buzzing, kind of white noise in my head. Yeah. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I didn't feel woozy or dizzy, but it was just this rushing noise. You know, like you'd been at a gig the day before and it hadn't kind of subsided, almost tinnitus like.
Yeah.
And what the hell is going on? I thought, did I eat? It was blood sugar or something like that. And then I was about to pull off, and I couldn't quite judge the distance between myself and the car in front. I wasn't quite sure of it. I was like, what the hell is going on here? It's like my spatial awareness deserted me. Anyway, I proceeded on. There was a line of traffic, went quite slowly. Got up to the supermarket, pulled in, and as I was parking, I knew the way I parked there was something wrong. I went, doesn't feel right. It's bizarre. What? I got out of the car, had a look at it, and I thought, Jesus Christ, people think I'm drunk. That was kind of like, what the hell what are you doing? What's going on? I didn't know what was going on. This noise is beginning to get really loud in my head. Fixed the car, went to queue. I had to queue to get into the shop because they were only letting certain amounts of people in at a time. And again, that same, I stood in the queue, and for the very first time, and we've all stood in queues these days because we have to, right? And you know, with the little discs on the ground for social distancing, I actually had to look at the ground to see was I the right distance away from the person in front of me, because I couldn't judge it. So, long story short, went in, picked up a basket, put it on my left arm, and I was heading. I knew exactly what I was going to get and where I had to get them. And the first thing I did was I knocked stuff off a counter. Now, at this stage, I'm beginning to get really kind of freaked. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I picked that stuff up, very embarrassed. And again, the same thought in my head, like, people think I'm drunk here. And then I bumped into somebody on the left-hand side. So, moved on, got over to the aisle that I was looking for stuff in, was looking was looking for noodles for my daughter. She wanted to do a stir-fry Szechuan noodles, and she told me the specific brand, and I couldn't see them, so I called one of the girls working there. I said, can you see them there? Is it me? I haven't got my glasses with me, so maybe it's me, maybe I'm blind. She said, no, they're not there. I'll go and check out the bag. She came back and said, no, sorry, we don't have them. We will have them tomorrow. So if you can come back, I'll make sure that they're there for you. And I said, thank you very much. I turned to walk away, and then the room just went it completely 180 degrees on me. Bang. Blacked out, collapsed, dropped. Now, didn't reel, didn't topple, straight down on my knees. And I actually still have a dent in my knee bone from it. And the next thing I remember is a man leaning over me saying, sir, are you all right? Are you having chest pains? And I said, no, I'm not having chest pains. It's not a heart attack. I know what heart attack protocols are. It's not that. It's something in my head. Still hadn't put two and two together. Yeah. So he said, can we ring somebody? I said, my daughter's at home. I took my phone out. I couldn't read my own phone. I couldn't focus. I couldn't see. And anyway, long story short, Sophie, my eldest daughter, came up. She collected me. She got an awful fright. She brought me home. I lay down on the couch in my room, my back room, my man cave, and we were talking away. And then the next thing, she's looming over me, going, Dad, are you okay? And I went, what? Dad, I just must have nodded off. She said, no, you went again. She said, if you'd been standing up, you would have fallen again. And at that stage, I'm going, what the hell is going on? There's all sorts of possibilities running through your head. Again, long story short.
Like what? What's running through your head at
well,
this point?
My eldest son, who has a bit of paramedic experience, had come in, and he said, it might be a stroke. And he was looking at my face. He went through the fast protocols. None of that applied. So the only outward signs that there was something had happened, or what it turned out to be subsequently had happened, was that I was having problems with spatial awareness and distance. I couldn't judge the distance. In fact, I just banged your thing there because I didn't see it, and it's on my left-hand side. Anyway, we'll get to that. So there was a phone call made to another member of the family who's a registrar in James's, and he said, don't wait for an ambulance, don't wait for a doctor, just bring him up to Beaumont now. Got in, and really, you go up to Beaumont on Friday evening, and you think you're going to be there for 3 days, you know. I was triaged in 3 hours. I was in a bed within 6. And following morning, they came and said, you have had a pulmonary embolism, which is a clot on your lung. And I thought, okay, could have been worse, but why am I in a stroke ward? And he said, because what you told us, what you described to us, does not compute with what we've seen so far. Then they did brain MRIs, and they discovered that I had a stroke, possibly 2 strokes. With effectively a small clot, thank God, in a large vessel. If it was the other way around, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
What goes through your head when a doctor stands in your room and says, Mark, you've had not 1, you've had 2 strokes?
Oh, Jesus Christ, is exactly what went through my head. And then I thought, well, I'm here. I feel okay. At no stage in any of this, Kieran, did I feel unwell. No nausea. I hadn't been ill coming up to it. I'm healthy as a horse. Everything they told me to do in terms of recovery, I had been doing for the last 30 years. You know, I mean, you know me well enough. I live like a monk.
Yeah.
Don't sleep, don't smoke, don't drink, go to bed early, get up early, eat properly, exercise 3 to 4 times a week. So everything that they would have said I should do, I've been doing that for donkey's years. So, look, this isn't really, look, this is a, oh my God. But also in terms of what could have happened, incredibly lucky and incredibly grateful, right? Because I've had no loss of paralysis, no drooping of features, no loss of power in any limbs. The one material, physical damage, piece of damage that's been done is that I've lost 1/4 of my vision. So if you take your vision as being a circle, divide it in 4, bottom left-hand quadrant is gone, which means I'll never drive again. Because
never?
No.
That'll never come back?
No, because when you get to my age, you have to produce an eye test when you go to renew your licence. And they told me I will never, I wouldn't pass that based on what they're seeing there. And the lower right occipital region is one of the, it governs some of that, plus spatial awareness.
Yeah.
So stuff, if something came at me suddenly from the left, I wouldn't see it until it was too late. And also, you know, there's a lot of stuff about stroke. I didn't feel sick at all until after the stroke. And I'm not the kind of person who has nightmares, but I have 2 nightmares now as a result of it. One was that if that had happened 5 minutes earlier when I was in the car, I drove a big tank of a car, 3.5 litre engine. Very nice car. I loved it. Big, huge, powerful thing, right? If I had collapsed and put my foot on that accelerator in that car, I would have flattened whatever was in front of me. Yeah. Car or human being. And I have nightmares about that. So
still.
I don't think I'll ever stop having them, because it could so easily have happened. It could so, I mean, it was the grace of God it didn't happen, Kieran.
What's your other nightmare?
My other nightmare is that the last thing my kids and my family will remember is me going off to get Szechuan noodles and me being covered by a blanket in a supermarket in Sutton Cross. And I never had a chance to say goodbye.
That you would have died.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's no question. Look, it is the grace of God. As he said to me, small clot, large vessel. Big clot, small vessel. We're not having this conversation. And it's like that. And I'll tell you, do you know you know the way we all, theoretically, we know we can walk out the front door and you can get hit by a bus. Everybody knows that, right?
We know it, but we know it in the abstract.
In the abstract, exactly. And then one day you walk out the front door and you get hit by the bus. And from there on in, you are terrified of buses. And I have 10,000 of these tiny little buses in my head, and any one of them could.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
When you left the house today, was there a part of you, I'm not saying it's completely occupied your thoughts, but was there a part of you thinking I might not come back?
I'll tell you what happens. when you in fairness to myself, the rest of my family all did it, right? But in fairness to myself, I didn't do the Dr. Google thing. But with subsequent consultations with the stroke people and all the rest of it, you become aware of the fact that strokes tend not to be singular events. So you are aware that it can happen again. And when you put that together with your worst fears and what you've been through, you then don't think of, well, what if it happens again? It's when will it happen again? So there is always the possibility that it can happen again. And what makes that a little worse for me is that I had done everything right. I had done all of the things that I should do to recover, as I said to you. I've been doing for donkey's years. I live like a monk, and I'm happy. I think, I'm grand. I mean, I did an awful lot of really stupid stuff when I was young, and I thought, you know what, you're going to have to work really hard to make up for that. And I thought I had. I thought I did. I thought the bus would never hit me, and then it does. And then you think, oh, Christ.
You feel a bit cheated because of that?
No, I feel lucky. No, my initial overwhelming feeling is gratitude, because I spent the best part of 3 weeks in an acute stroke unit in Beaumont. Right, I saw the range of options and alternatives that there could have been. There's one in particular that really strikes with me. There's one man, I won't mention his name or where he's from, but he was a young man with a very young family, and nothing on his right hand side was working. Nothing. And I thought, dear God, I wish you all the best. I say a prayer for him every night, and I don't say prayers. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I say a prayer for him anytime I am doing it. And I think of him, and I hope he will be okay. And more importantly, I hope that his road is not as long as it looked like it was going to be. And that could have been me, or it could have been I could have been covered by a blanket in a supermarket, Sutton Cross.
If you're just tuning in, Mark Cagney is my guest on The Hard Shoulder today. You talk, Mark, about the thought, the nightmare of not coming home and the blanket being placed over you in the supermarket. That's a nightmare for your family as well.
Absolutely. Oh, the shock. Look, in fairness, they've been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about families is that life goes on. You only get pampered and special treatment for a certain amount of time. Then there comes a point where you say, well, listen, you could do the hoovering now. And listen, I'm doing the dinner. Will you peel the potatoes? And you go, okay, now you're probably going to have to go and have a lie down after it. But life goes on. And human beings we are, as human beings, we're wonderfully resilient, despite, no matter how weak and frail or how badly we're feeling or how hard we've been knocked down, we do, given half a chance, get up and bounce back.
Yeah.
What was it Ian Dowie said? He used to call it bounce back ability.
Bounce back ability was the great phrase. It must, though, have an impact on your sense of self-worth. I mean, we all like to think that we have complete agency over this body that we control. And now, I suppose, on some level, like at an abstract level, we all know that, there's things, though, that can happen that takes away that agency. You've actually experienced it.
Funnily enough, given how hard I worked at the physical side of my life, you would think that would probably be the worst kick in the privates for me. Actually, that's not been the most difficult thing. The most difficult, and anybody who has gone through a stroke, who's listening, or who has had family members go through it, they will know this, that one of the hardest things is in the aftermath. There's an acute anxiety and depression that comes with it. And the anxiety is about whether it'll happen to you again. Not that when it will, but not if it will, but when it will. And then there's this depression about who am I now post-stroke? What was I before post-stroke? Who am I now? Can I be that again? Can I be the same old Mark? Will people look at me differently? For example, in this game, will people, having heard this, will they pick up the phone and say, oh, listen, we have a gig, Mark, are you interested? No, it's not that they would have anything against me personally, but they may very well go, oh God, that's awful, that's terrible. But what if it happened again? What happened if it happened on our premises? What happens? Would we be liable? You know how risk-averse businesses and corporations can be and all those. And also, and it is very interesting, if you have cancer and you beat it, you're strong, the strength of will and purpose. If you have a heart attack and you get over it and you get back to normal, it's, God, that man's a beast. Yeah. If you have a brain injury.
Brain damaged.
Exactly. And no matter how fair and impartial you are, it's almost impossible when you're told that somebody has a stroke not to ask, is he okay? Is she okay?
Yeah.
Are
they different now?
absolutely. It's been injured. It must have had some effect. Can you still string a sentence together? Are you still coherent? Can you still, do you still have recall? Do you struggle for words? What's your memory like? Has your personality been affected?
Yeah.
And actually, if you Google stroke, one of the things there's a couple of questions that come. Those drop-down menus that come with them. Why do stroke patients cry so much? Do stroke patients get really, really angry? And I'm going, what? I haven't cried once, and I'm certainly not any crankier than I ever was. But so that is a very common feature, and it's something that's really, really difficult for a lot of people to deal
including
with.
Yourself. You used the word like anxiety and depression, and you talked about the anxiety, less so.
Well, the depression is about who am I? What am I? What can I do now? What
but
am
have you felt that acutely?
Well, yeah, I do wonder. First and foremost, but also worry about whether, you see, it's a bit like, oh, well, look, you'll be grand once you get back on the horse again. But somebody's got to let you get back on the horse. Somebody's got to say, well, here's my horse, you can get on it. You know what I mean?
Does it ages you? Does it more than other? In people's eyes, is that the fear that I know you talk about the young person and the young man who's in that awful situation in the ward with you, but that you get a sense from other people that a stroke is something maybe that happens to older people, even if it's not necessarily true?
No, age isn't the word I would use.
Okay.
Diminish.
Right.
That you are somehow lesser. Now, that could be paranoia on my part. It could just be my take on it. But, I try and put myself where you are.
Yeah.
And I ask the questions and I go, well, how would I respond?
Do you feel lesser?
Do you know what? This is the most honest answer I can give you. I don't know yet, because I'm only coming out the other side. And part of coming in here is because I want to tell, and I want to tell people I'm not dead yet. I'm still standing. I'm still swinging. I'm still going, right? As far as I can tell, I'm pretty much the old me. Not firing on all cylinders totally yet, but that'll come. But also to say to anybody else out there who's going through the same thing, you're not dead either. You're not. It isn't over. You've survived. There has to be a reason for that. Either you did something very right, or you've still got something very right to do. Do you know what I mean? That it's not over. And I'm slap me if I sound like I'm trying to give people hope. I don't mean it like that. But it's just, it's not over. I'm not dead yet. I'm going to get back on that horse as soon as somebody allows me to, and you can too.
What you said, not firing on all cylinders. Like what's the legacy today? Besides the eyesight,
right. There's the fatigue, chronic fatigue, which is mad. As I said, like going for a shower, it feels like you've done a workout and you've been hit by a bus all at the same time. I have this tinnitus-like noise in my head all the time, pretty much all the time. Now it goes up and down in volume, and it kind of it ebbs and waxes and wanes in terms of sometimes it's very loud and it's in the front of my head, and sometimes at the back and it's quiet, and most of the time I can ignore it. I can focus on. If I focus on something else, it recedes. But it is there, and I get two notes. One is a kind of a high-pitched whine, a bit like line-up tone in a studio, in a radio studio. You know what that's like, right? It's quite high. I'd say about 5k, maybe 10k. And then the other is this, what I call the swarm of bees, which is a low. That's there pretty much all the time. Sometimes you can get one, sometimes you can get both, sometimes it can be quiet, sometimes it can be loud. I can't really tell. Some days it's insufferable, but I'm having less and less and less of those.
Okay.
But then I just go, put on an eye mask, draw the blinds, go to bed and sleep it off.
There's people, as you said, who have strokes and they'd swap places with you in the morning if all you lost was the ability to drive. But I'm still conscious, the first time we get behind the wheel of a car, one of the great things it gives us is independence.
Absolutely.
And do you feel you've lost some of that independence?
Yes, absolutely. But when I consider there's two aspects to that. First and foremost, there's that kind of recurring nightmare I have about what could have happened. So, the idea that I would even remotely risk something like that again, that's just not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Just couldn't happen. The other thing too is that I know a car is all sorts of things where people are concerned. It's a status symbol. It's it's psychological phallic symbol. All of that nonsense, right? But at the end of the day, it's just stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of my pride and my dignity kind of departed as I saw the car being taken away, because it was a bit like, I'm dependent on other people now. And that was a bit like, because I'm not somebody who likes to be dependent on other people. I'm the person other people depend on. So that was a bit hard to take. But ultimately, no.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to read some of the texts that have come in for you. I love Mark. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery and I hope everything goes well for him. Such a nice man. Paul in Dublin 8 says, I've been a fan of Mark since those pirate radio days. That's going back a few years now. I hope you'll be okay. Please take care of yourself. That's from Paul. Stephen says, I can understand Mark's position. Something similar happened to me. It was 10 years ago. For me, it was the sensation of pins and needles in my hand. I had numerous strokes before I ended up in hospital. Thankfully, I have no symptoms, just like Mark, and best of luck to him. A compelling interview, says someone else. Wishing you a speedy recovery, Mark, and thank you for sharing. And Stephen in Glasnevin says, I've been listening to Mark from the early days of 2FM and all the way up through Ireland AM and News Talk now. I'm a big fan. If he can't drive, does that mean I won't see him going into Jimmy's music shop anymore?
No, Jimmy will have to come to me.
All right, home delivery from Jimmy, Stephen in Glasnevin. I hope that answers your question. Mark, thanks a million for coming in and sharing the story with us.